Everybody, thank you for joining the Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective for this Tuesday, March 16th. I am Robert Theobald, Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services here at the Arizona Commerce Authority, and we're excited to have you with us today. We'd like to first start by thanking all our community partners. These community partners are instrumental in the Small Business Bootcamp, and we could not do it without their help and support. The Small Business Bootcamp is designed to help small businesses work through the COVID crisis and return stronger than ever. And it is a statewide initiative supported by those community partners. It is also, besides a boot camp, it is also a resource collective, and we will talk about that here in one moment. So the Small Business Bootcamp website is a great website to favorite, link to your desktop or on your favorites bar. On this website, you have the link to register, or the link to register for the upcoming sessions, or the archive sessions and the resource collective. So one of the best parts about this website is the archive sessions. We have over 125 boot camps that we've done. We record all of them and post them on this page so that you can go back and reference them at any time. And there's no cost to go back and look at them. So you can reference all the different topics. If you missed a session that you want to go back and watch, or you're looking for something specific, we probably have it on there. It's an incredible resource library that is available to everyone. And then part of that is the Resource Collective. And the Resource Collective is a website set up with our tools and guides and resources from our community partners to help small businesses. On this website, you can find various guides, and these are just a sample of some of the guides and resources available on that page. As you'll see, there's guidance for retail, unemployment insurance, barbershops, cosmetologists, restaurants, manufacturing, construction. There's a lot of great information available on the Resource Collective as well. Additionally, another website that's a wealth of knowledge is our COVID-19 Arizona Business Resources page. And on this page, you can find business guidance, financial guidance, and other tools and resources to help your business during this time. You can find that at azcommerce.com/COVID-19, or if you just go to azcommerce.com, right across the top of the page will be a big blue ribbon that says COVID-19 Business Resources, and you can click on that. And we have both an English and Spanish version of that website. Additionally, we have a number of programs that can help support small businesses. We have our small business services, and we can help you work through working with the SBA, the SBDCs, SCORE, local banking contacts, and other opportunities. Our workforce division can help if you're looking to hire employees or upskill your employees. They have a couple different programs to work through those things. And then our Arizona MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnership, is a program to help work with manufacturers, small to medium-sized manufacturers, to help them grow and work through their business. Additionally, there's a lot of people looking to start businesses or start side gigs, and we have our small business checklist. And this checklist program is an online interactive tool to help businesses identify the licensing and registration and compliance needs at the local, state, and federal level. It is a great resource that you can find at azcommerce.com/smallbiz. And then the last website I want to mention is the state's COVID-19 information and resource page, arizonatogether.org. This is also a great page with a lot of information, not just business related, but everything related to COVID-19. So with that, I want to jump into our updates. And we got a lot of updates to talk about today. First, late last week, the American Rescue Plan Act was passed and signed by the president. And in that, there are a number of things for small businesses. There was $7.25 billion added to the Paycheck Protection Program, and that program has been extended on as well. There was $15 billion added to the Targeted Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. The Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program had some updates, and this is a critical one. The change with that is businesses can apply for both the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Program and PPP. Previously, you could only apply for one or the other, but now businesses that would fall under the SVOG can apply for both programs. And the SVOG application process is not up yet, but hopefully will be soon. And then another great program that was included in that act was the $28.6 billion for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund for industry-focused grants for restaurants. We don't have a lot of information and details on that yet, but as we do, we will post them on our website, and we will be holding a special session to talk about the SVOG and the restaurant revitalization programs here in the near future within the next week or two. So be on the lookout for emails and information about that special session. Also, I've included the link here, the SBA COVID-19 relief options. That link will be posted in the chat, but on that website, you can find information about all of the SBA programs related to small business. The restaurant revitalization is so new that it's not on that page yet, but it will be at some point. And so that's a great website to keep track of because it's easy access to the PPP, EIDL, SVOG, and other programs by the SBA. And then finally, I wanted to share some great news that came out, I believe, yesterday in a press release, but the COVID-19, EIDL, and other disaster loans have been, the payments or repayments have been deferred until 2022. So if you got an EIDL loan for COVID-19 early on last year, then you were getting close to the window where you start having to repay that. And so the SBA has deferred that loan up to 24 months for some. And if you got an EIDL in 2021, it's being deferred 18 months. So that link will give you some more information on the deferral of those programs, but it was great news to hear yesterday from the SBA. And then finally, an update that's not on this slide, but the ACA has another webinar right after this one at 10 a.m. It's our Empowering Rural Communities webinar, and it's going to be focused on grant writing. And so if you're looking at applying for any of these grants in the future that may come up, it would be a great webinar to watch. They've got a grant writing expert that's going to be sharing information. We will post the information for that webinar in the chat as well, so you can look at it and sign up for it if you're available at 10 a.m. Right after this webinar. So with that, I want to look at this week's sessions. We've got two great sessions this week. Today's session, how to build and monitor your business credit score. And then on Thursday, we have a very good session by the legal experts at Spencer Fain on hiring an employee versus an independent contractor. And if you've been watching the boot camps in the past, we've had another legal expert on talking about some of the mistakes that can be made. And oftentimes small businesses, as they're starting up, make mistakes with employees versus independent contractors. And so we want to help everybody understand the differences, so as a small business, you don't get in trouble by doing the wrong one. So that's going to be a great session on Thursday. So with that, we're going to turn the time over to our speaker today. We have Paula Wittekind from the Maricopa Small Business Development Center. She's the CARES Program Supervisor, and we worked with her a lot in the past. We're looking forward to today's session. So Paula, I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn the time over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Robert. All right, let me just get the correct setting here. All right, can you see my screen?
We got it.
All right, good to go. Again, thank you, Robert and the ACA for inviting me here today in the SBDC to present on how to build and monitor your business credit. As just briefly, as Robert said, I'm the CARES Program Supervisor. I've been with the Maricopa SBDC now for more than 4 years, and prior to that, a business owner myself with a team of about less than 10 employees and contractors. So I've got that business experience behind me, and I've been helping counsel clients now for several years. So happy to be with you here today. So moving on, so building business credit, we're finding just as we're helping to counsel our small businesses last year and now into this year through COVID, we're finding many, are still in sustaining mode. Some are heading into recovery and some are either in that growth mode. But having navigated COVID, we've just found that so many of our small businesses were really not prepared for the types of financial documents and programs that were made available through the COVID funding. And so this business credit is one of those areas of think of that foundational financial toolkit that any small business owner needs to have in place. And knowing your business credit score is one of those key pieces of having that financial foundation in place. So I'm happy to be here with you and share that information with you. We're going to be talking about business credit scores, how can it impact your business, how and where to check it, how to build it, and then how to monitor and fix any issues. So let's jump in here. Let's start first just with a survey. Now, this was a survey done by the Federal Reserve from small businesses, and they asked small businesses, when you applied for credit, did you use personal credit, business credit, or both? And what they found is that of those that responded, only 12% used a business credit score, 40% used personal, and then 48% used both business and personal. So here again, as we're working with our small businesses, oftentimes they don't really even realize that a business credit score exists, and they might actually have one that they're not aware of. In another survey by Manta and nav.com, they found that, when they surveyed small businesses, 72% didn't even know that they had that small business credit score. So we're going to talk about why it's actually important. And I should stop here and just make a note that the slides I'm presenting here today are made available by nav.com. NAV, as you'll learn in our presentation, is one of those sources of business credit information, and they offer programs for SBDC counselors to get certified in business credit. So just kind of a shout out and thank you to nav.com. So you'll see some references to them in our presentation today. So why business credit matters? Well, first of all, if you are looking for insurance or you're a business that needs bonding, oftentimes those businesses, when they're looking at your business and deciding whether or not to approve you for that insurance or bonding, may very well be checking your business credit score in addition to your personal credit scores or other financial information about the business. Secondly, government contracting. Now, if you're someone that already contracts with the federal government, you're probably already aware that you need a DUNS number from Dun & Bradstreet, which we'll be talking about here shortly, to do business with them. But oftentimes, as you're exploring partnerships and business relationships for government contracts, it may very well be likely that they're checking not only the financials of the business, the personal credit scores, but also business credit scores as well. And that can impact whether or not you get some of those contracts. And then finally, just anything related to finance, whether you're looking to set up or have existing accounts with vendors or suppliers to your business, maybe you're applying for SBA loans through the Small Business Administration, or just through regular banks, commercial loans, or maybe you're looking to purchase a piece of equipment for your business. All of these areas, these three areas here, all of this may very well take into account your business credit score. And if that business credit score is not sound and looking good, it could very well impact your ability to get the financing that you need for growth. And as I mentioned also, even just looking for those business partnerships, right? They may very well look at what is your business credit scores. They're kind of scoping you out to seeing if they want to do business with you. So very, very important in many different ways. Now, just know that, a good business credit score, it's not a guarantee that, you'll get loans or these business partnerships, but what they found through some surveys is that 41% of businesses are more likely to be approved for loans if they have that good business credit score. So now let's briefly take a look at some of these major commercial credit bureaus, just to get you familiar with who out there, deals in commercial business credit. So the three on the screen, Dun & Bradstreet, Equifax, and Experian, are probably familiar to most of you. You've probably seen the names of these credit bureaus out there. Dun & Bradstreet deals specifically with the commercial, the business credit. Both Equifax and Experian deal in both the personal credit, but also the business credit. Now, there are some additional credit data sources to just be aware of. The Small Business Financial Exchange, SBFE. Now, this is a source where it was formed by some lenders who wanted to have additional information about how their borrowers were paying those debts. They started collecting information. So they collect data, but they do not offer credit reports. They do make that data available to those vendors who are certified, like Equifax, Experian, or Dun & Bradstreet, to provide those credit reports. So they are a source of data collection. Credit Safe is actually more of an international credit bureau, but they are beginning to market more here in the United States. LexisNexis, again, deals with some credit reports, as well as InfoGroup. So just be aware that there are many different credit data sources and bureaus out there that do offer these credit scores. Now, another area to keep in mind and just to consider is that, although the credit bureaus and these collections agencies are collecting this data from businesses, if you're going to a lender, as an example, to apply for a loan, although they may be checking your business credit score, personal credit scores, we are starting to hear some reports where sometimes these lenders may go out and very well look at public information that's available about your business. And obviously social media is one of them. So they may go out and check and see, are you up on social media? What type of reviews are you getting? So just keep in mind that any information publicly available about your business, if it's negative, could potentially have a negative impact on your ability to get these opportunities, such as loans. And so keep in mind, it's important to track that public information. Just another data source about your business. Now let's take a look at what's actually in this business credit report. For the most part, it's fairly similar to a personal credit report, but there are some differences. So this is just one example on the screen. I know some of the data is kind of small here, but this is actually an example of a nav.com report. And so typically what you're going to see in a business credit report is basic information about the business, name of the business, address. It might show your standard industrial classification codes. It might show a sales revenue number, a number of employees. Now, whether or not that information is accurate and up to date might depend on the credit bureau, because we're going to be talking about the differences in these different reports. So it may or may not always be accurate, but there's going to be some basic information about your business. You'll also find in here some public information, things around maybe UCC filings, tax filings, public records about the business may also show up in that business credit report, as well as there was going to be a list of kind of those active trade accounts that you have for the business, right? Maybe some business credit cards, maybe you have some vendor supplier arrangements. Those are going to show up in the report as well. So just generally speaking, those will be the areas of what you'll see in the business credit report. And we're going to dive in a little bit deeper as we move through the presentation. Now, there are differences. So one of the main differences really between personal and business credit is, for personal credit, there are laws in place under the Fair Credit Reporting Act that protect things such as privacy, how long negative information can be left on that personal credit report. There's some laws around disputes and disputing things that you find there, as well as even just making sure that you have access to a free credit report every year. But those laws do not exist for business credit. And so that is one of the major differences to keep in mind. So some of the things we may take, for granted for personal credit, not necessarily for the business credit. So we're going to take a look at that. Now, one of the differences you'll see between the personal and business credit is in that business credit account credit report, it'll show a list of your active trade accounts, but it's not going to specifically show the business, who that's through. It's not specifically going to say ABC office supplies. It's going to give you general categories of business types. So as you see here on the screen, they put them into buckets of utilities, communication, food distribution, material handler. But it's not necessarily going to give you clues as to who that is that's reporting. So this can be a bit of a challenge because you may have to, if you're trying to fix some errors or potential errors you might see there, you're going to have to do some investigation to find out who exactly is reporting. So that's one major difference in the business credit report. Another difference is around credit limits. So oftentimes for personal credit, they're going to use something called that debt usage ratio, kind of using your credit limit on an account. So dividing kind of your current balance by your credit limit to get a debt usage. Well, for business credit, this is slightly different. So rather than using a credit limit for an account, they might very well use a recent high credit balance. And so to get this, so in this example, you see it says 13% credit utilization on this example. So what they've done is kind of taken the current balance and divided it by a high credit balance. The key here is in that difference is, it could depend on the credit agency, how recent that high credit balance was. This can vary between the different credit bureaus because those laws are not in place. So a difference, just to understand about how they're calculating, that credit utilization for your business credit score. Another difference really is in payment history. So in personal credit, you might actually get kind of a long laundry list of details of showing your payment history where you might be able to pick out easily where something looks wrong in your report. Maybe you paid a debt off, but it's still showing there or something's wrong. But now in your business credit report, it's likely going to be higher level. And here again, you may have to do a bit of digging down and investigation to find out where problems might be in your payment history because it may be more in a summary format. Now here again, it could depend on the different credit bureaus because there's not necessarily standardization or those laws that says what must be in that report. So a report from one credit bureau may look different from a report from a different credit bureau. Now, another significant kind of difference here in payment history is you see on the screen, you see where it says 1 to 30 DBT, 31 to 60 DBT. What they do for the business credit is they look at days beyond terms. So one example would be, say you have an account, a vendor account with ABC office supplies. And this vendor account is where basically you purchase goods and you pay later. So ABC office invoices you maybe $100 for some supplies that you purchased. Well, you actually pay them, but you're paying late. And maybe you pay them 2 days late, so they don't receive your payment until day 32. So what happens is this days beyond terms, it would show on your credit report that you were 2 days beyond the days beyond terms when that was actually due. So this is a difference between that personal credit and business credit. And I'll show you another example further on into the presentation, but days beyond terms. So it's important to kind of realize what that means. Now, also for business credit reports, there is no requirement as a business that you receive a free credit report. There are some credit agencies that you can go in and get kind of a snapshot, quick credit report to see if you even have a business credit score and what that is. nav.com is one that actually does provide a free report so you can see what your score is. And then also Dun & Bradstreet, I think, also has an offering for at least where you can check your credit score for free. And the others may provide that as well. Here again, I think it's important to, now that you know some of the credit bureaus that deal in business credit scores, go out and kind of explore and check into, what it is they have to offer for you as a small business, as far as checking your credit score maybe once a year, or even, they have subscriptions and things like that where you can look and monitor your credit. All right, so you can see there are differences between personal and business credit. So continuing on, how that credit report for your business actually comes to being, it's different. So thinking about your personal credit, oftentimes those accounts get open because you open maybe a personal credit card. So once you open that personal credit card, your credit score kind of comes into being. You're starting to build that personal credit score. Well, for business, it can happen both ways. You might start that, or it may happen and you don't even realize it. So one way that you can kind of open up that business credit file is to apply for a DUNS number through Dun & Bradstreet. So that's one way. Once you open up that DUNS account number, that kind of starts that business credit, kind of that foundation for building that business credit score. It also might occur if you file, maybe you're setting up your new business and you file for that new legal entity. Experian, I believe it is one of the credit bureaus that may pick up on that data, and kind of your credit files kind of open up. So it comes into being. Another way, of course, is if you open maybe a business credit card or one of these trade accounts. Now, just as for, your personal credit, you've got your Social Security number. Of course, for the business, you likely have an employee identification number through the IRS. But just know that these different credit bureaus have different numbers, so they're named differently. So if it's Dun & Bradstreet, you would have a DUNS number. If it's through Equifax, they have an ID called Equifax ID, and Experian has their business identification number, or BIN. So here again, another way that business credit scores differ from that personal credit. So what is a good business credit score? I showed you on that previous screen kind of the scales of what it looked like, and it probably caught your eye of, wait a minute, that score looks different from what I'm used to for personal credit. So personal credit, we're used to, maybe it's 600, 700, 800 plus as a personal credit score. Well, for business credit, the range differs, and it can differ based on the credit bureau. So for example, for Experian, they have one of their scores, IntelliScore, the range is 0 to 100. So as a small business, that 80 to 100 range would be considered kind of that excellent score. Dun & Bradstreet has a scoring called Paydex, again on that same range of 0 to 100, with that 80 to 100 being excellent, 70 to 100, very good. And then Equifax, that delinquent score is one of the scoring reports they have. And you see there, the range is different. It's even higher. So the important point really here is to just understand when you're looking at a credit score, understand how that credit bureau, what the range is and how they're defining that range. And there may be different types of credit scores and reports that can be run from these different credit bureaus. So these are just a few samples of that, but the range is different. Now it's important to also know about the FICO Small Business Scoring Service, FICO SBSS. And this is a score that's used by the U.S. Small Business Administration. And oftentimes, if you're looking to get one of those SBA loans, a 7A loan, this is a score that they're going to look at. And what happens is they derive this score, and this is on a range of 0 to 300. And they derive this score by calculating. They may look at your business credit score. They may also check your personal credit score. And that means for personal credit, if you have several owners of the business that have 20% or greater share ownership in that business, they likely will check those personal credit scores for those owners. But they may also bring into it the financials of the business. So they're pulling on potentially 3 different sources of data to come up with this FICO SBSS score. And this score can very well play into, whether or not you get that SBA loan, but there are, I believe, some commercial lenders who also may pull this score. So there's a lot to this. If you want to learn more, I have listed a link on the nav.com site that talks in more detail about this FICO SBSS score, if you'd like to learn more. So I know we've gone through a lot of information here. We will get to some questions, but let's continue on now to look at, so how do you exactly build this business credit? And I'm going to take you through the steps to doing this. The first step is to create a business entity. Now, I know that many of you here may already have been in business several years. Great. So think about the steps I'm going to share with you as kind of a checklist. Some of the things maybe you've done, but maybe you have some gaps. And if you're new to business, you may need to go through all of these steps. So kind of consider it your checklist of things to do. So be sure to take some notes. So create a business entity. The first thing really for any business practice, best business practice, set up a legal entity. That might be an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, a partnership, whatever is appropriate for your business, set up that legal entity. Now for sole proprietors, what you might do, maybe you don't set up as an LLC or a corporation, but what you should consider doing is setting up that fictitious name or a doing business as name, a DBA. And you can do that through the Arizona Corporation Commission. So if you're not familiar with that process, it's not overly complicated. So I encourage you to go out to the Corporation Commission website, and they have some information there about how to get that process started. And we're also going to talk about towards the end of the Small Business Development Center and the services we provide. So in our no-fee counseling, we can also help you kind of step through this process as well. Next is to apply for an employer identification number, an EIN number. So think of this as like your social security number, but for the business. So it's an EIN number, and you'll apply for that through the Internal Revenue Service. Here again, not overly complicated. There are those IRS forms that need to be filled out. And then finally, checking for licensing requirements. Robert already mentioned in his introduction, the Arizona Commerce Authority has a great interactive checklist. So you can go in there and check all the areas in this list that apply to your business. And it gives you a nice detailed report of all of the potential licensing requirements for your business. And really a great tool for you to check out. So I provided the link there on the slide for you to do that. As part of this, of just setting up the legal entity, you'll want to be aware of and make sure you've identified the appropriate industry codes for your business. So you might hear them referred to as the SIC code, the Standard Industrial Classification Code. These are codes that have been around for quite some time. But then you may have also heard of the North American Industrial Classification System, or NAICS codes. The NAICS codes are more recent, and they build on those initial SIC codes. So basically, it's a long list of industry classification codes, and it's important for you to make sure you identify those appropriately. In one example of a business, what happened is a business was applying for a loan. Now, they manufactured signs that realtors use, they put in front of the properties when they're selling business. They were actually a manufacturer of these signs. They went to apply for their loan, but what they didn't realize is their industry classification code had them flagged as a realtor, different than the manufacturing. Well, the lender they were working with didn't necessarily loan to realtors. So once they realized this was an issue, they were able to resolve it and get the lending they need. But this is something in the background that if those NAICS codes, those industry codes are not accurate, it could be a barrier to you getting that the funding that you need, or even to looking at some partnerships. So make sure those are correct. And you can actually go on the US Census Bureau website, and that's where you can research your NAICS code. Next step, it's very important, best business practice is to always separate business and personal finances and set up a business bank account. Very, very important. If you know you're approaching that lender, you're looking for that loan, they're likely going to ask for your business banking information. And really, just as we talked about setting up that legal entity, you know, if you've got that LLC or that corporation, there's something called maintaining the corporate veil. Very important to keep business and personal separate as you're running your business. Step 3, I mean, this seems kind of intuitive, but, you know, set up a real business. You want to make sure that for those looking to, you know, loan you money or enter a business relationship, that you look like a legit business, right? And these are 3 things that you can do. Set up a business address. You know, many, you know, I ran a business out of my home, right? So maybe you don't want to use your home address as that business address. Look to set up a PO box with that street address so you have a legitimate address. Have a business phone number. Make sure, you know, you're not just using your personal number for business. And I understand there's some potential services that you can use your personal phone and have a business phone and it rings on your personal phone, but it rings as your business phone. So again, separating personal from business. And of course, setting up a website. Now, it doesn't have to be overly expensive. It can just be a one-page website showing who you are, the products and services, and who you serve, but also your email. Set up a business email. It's not necessarily the best practice to just use a Gmail account for your business email. Register a domain name in the business name and set up that business email account. So 3 things to make sure you've checked the box on and that you're doing. Now, step 4, request that DUNS number from Dun & Bradstreet. Here again, there's no charge for this or very minimal charge to do this. And this is kind of that proactive step to where you can go in there and kind of start that business credit record. Now, you may go to the DUNS site and just do a search on your company. You may actually kind of exist already. Like I said, these business credit reports can, you know, come into being without you aware of it. So go and check and see if you have that record, and if not, apply for that DUNS number to start. Step 5, make sure you're establishing references that report. Now, one easy way to do this is maybe you have some trade accounts. Maybe you're doing business with ABC Business Supply as an example. Maybe ABC Business Supply already reports to the credit bureaus that track business credit. But maybe they don't. So maybe start with existing trade accounts. See for those you're doing business with if they actually report that business credit. If not, then what you should do is just explore some potential vendors where you could set up some of these trade accounts. And again, these trade accounts are, you know, you buy now, you pay later, they're going to invoice you, and then you pay that bill. And they're out there, you know, for things as simple as office supplies, janitorial supplies, Keurig cups for your business. Here again, nav.com, I put the link to an article, and they've actually listed some potential vendors just to kind of get you started thinking about who might I set some of these trade accounts up with. Great way to start building that business credit. Of course, step 6, a business credit card. Look to get a business credit card, and don't get hung up too much on, you know, it's difficult. I'm just a new business. I may not be able to get a business credit card. You know, obviously you want to get a card that's going to report so you can build your credit score. If you have an existing bank relationship, well, that's a logical place to start. Go talk to your banker and find out if they report that credit. If you are new and looking, you know, for that credit card, of course, the big banks are there, but also look to some of those community lenders that are out there. There are community lenders that want to do business with small businesses. So, you know, go talk to 2, 3, 4 financial institutions and explore what your options are. And here again, NAV has an article that actually lists the financial institutions and who they're reporting to, whether they're reporting to Experian or Equifax. So if you want to dig a little bit deeper into that, again, an additional resource for you. Now, of course, pay on time. Absolutely important that you pay on time and manage those balances so they don't get too big. Now, we had already talked earlier about this days beyond terms, and here's that example again. So if you have that trade account, say, and maybe it's not 30 terms, you get the invoice from that company, you pay late, and it shows up 2 days late, it's going to show on that business credit report as 32 days beyond terms. Same thing, maybe it's a 60-day terms. If it's received 2 days late, it's still going to show as the 2 days beyond terms. So that's negative on your report and can impact your score. So put some systems in place to make sure you're tracking and paying on time. Now, a couple of years ago, there was a survey, I think it was an Experian article or survey that was done, and they showed that the average days beyond terms was 11. Now, this is not to encourage that you should do that, but that's pretty high. I think the point really here is track and make sure paying on time. You don't want that to show up as a negative on your credit score because it can impact your score. Of course, step 8, make sure you're fixing mistakes. The Wall Street Journal had an article a couple years ago that showed about 25% of business credit reports had errors in them. So here again should be some inspiration just to go and check and see if you've got a credit score out there. And then if you do, start looking into and exploring what's in that credit report, because errors do happen. And again, there is no law necessarily that's governing, those business credit reports. So you want to check into that and make sure you're, if you find something that's wrong, you may very well have to check with each credit bureau to get these mistakes resolved. So here again, it may take some investigation and it may take some time to correct any mistakes that you find in there. So if you're planning to go approach a lender for some loan, or even, there's always more of the COVID funding opportunities coming up, I would definitely encourage you to get in there, check the score, fix any mistakes, because it can take time to correct these things. And obviously monitor your credit. There is, I'm sure most of you have heard about, there's a lot of fraud, especially going on just due to the COVID pandemic and the programs out there. So here again, just as with personal credit, make sure you're monitoring and fixing any discrepancies that you find. So just doing a quick time check here. This is our final section. I just want to call into a couple of credit challenges as you go to kind of look at maybe that credit score for the very first times, things that you might see there. So just a couple more minutes here on slides, and I want to leave enough time for all of you to ask some questions. So some typical credit challenges, you just basically lack of data, negative information, and wrong information. So let's kind of quickly move through each of these items. So you might get that credit report, and you may just see that you have no credit score at all. So here again, I just walked you through those 9 steps of starting to build your business credit. So I'd encourage you to follow those 9 steps, and just know that it doesn't happen overnight. So, oftentimes, whether you're planning to approach a lender in the short term, don't delay, right? Because this can take some time to move through this process. And so don't delay on that. Oftentimes just getting it done in Bradstreet number may take a month or so. Getting vendors and credit card reports to actually report to the bureaus can take a couple of months. So here again, no time to waste. As you look at a credit report, you might see that if there have been some previous collections on your account, those may be showing up. So if you see some collection reports on your account and you know that they've been cleared, you're probably going to have to reach out to that collection agency and start the process to get that cleared off of your business credit. UCC filings. Now, these are those legal documents that maybe you have some loans, maybe you've purchased a piece of equipment and you've got some creditors out there and they have a legal right to, the collateral related to that financial agreement you have with them. UCC filings may not necessarily impact the score, but what it might do is if, say, a lender is looking at your business and checking your score, if you've got several UCC filings, they may be looking at that saying, well, is all of your collateral tied up in existing financial agreements and obligations? So it may be a barrier to you getting some additional funding for that business. So here again, it's important that, making sure if it's accurate. If you've got some UCC filings on there and it's incorrect, you want to make sure to take the steps to get that released off of your record. Bankruptcy is the same way. These can definitely impact your score. In general, bankruptcies might account for between 5 to 10% of the overall score, but here again, because there isn't necessarily a law regulating this business credit reporting, there can be some differences between the different bureaus and how they're showing that. So here again, you might need to take steps to clear that and get that released. Tax liens, the very same kind of message about make sure it's accurate, make sure you're clearing those off of the record, because those can, of course, impact your credit score. Now here, you might be wondering, how long does this negative information stay up there? Well, there's no requirement as far as terms of how long those credit bureaus, can keep that up there. It's really up to each individual credit bureau to determine that. So here I've just shown on the screen a couple of examples. So for example, Experian, in general, 10 years or so for bankruptcy, 7 years for liens, 6 years for collections. Dun & Bradstreet, 11 plus years. So you see there's a little bit of difference between the different agencies. So again, it's important to understand that credit bureau report that you're getting and how long they're keeping that information up there. And then finally, time in business. So, your time in business, we talked about setting at step one, setting up that legal entity. So if someone's checking your business credit, the time that you are actually in business can impact that credit score. So when you set up your legal entity, that kind of starts the clock for when you've opened your business. The time in file refers to the time that you've actually been reporting to that credit file. So both may be taken into account kind of when looking at that business credit score. So it really is important as you start that business to get that timestamp of when you started business. There are lenders who will only want to work with small businesses that have been in years, maybe, in business, maybe 2+ years. They all have kind of their different portfolio requirements of who they work with. So here again, important to set up that legal entity and be aware of those dates. And then finally, inquiries. So we always kind of get the question about inquiries. For personal credit, you pay late and all of a sudden you could really get hit on that personal credit score. So do inquiries, to the business, even for checking business credit, impact business credit as they do personal credit? They don't necessarily have that major factor like they do for personal credit, but they can be, but not significantly like that personal credit. So just in summary, again, it's really important. Think about your financial toolkit. It's not just your financial statements and your personal credit score, the business credit score, knowing what that is, building it, monitoring it, really strengthening it for future opportunities for your business, whether you're looking for capital or maybe you're just looking down the road to, build some strategic partnerships, business partnerships. This business credit is really a key part of that financial toolkit for your small business. So hopefully you found this information helpful in moving forward. And here, just to close off a little bit about Maricopa Small Business Development Services and how we can help. So, we have about 17 counselors in Maricopa County, and we have 10 SBDC sites in Arizona. The SBDC is part of a national network, and Maricopa is part of the Arizona network. So we offer this no-fee counseling. There's no trick to it. We're funded by the Small Business Administration at the federal level, and then here by Maricopa Community Colleges locally, and through our partnership with the Arizona Corporation Commission. And again, it's no-fee counseling. We help all small businesses, whether you're just starting out, don't really know what next steps to take, to businesses who are scaling up, and we have very well-established large small businesses that we can continue to provide counseling for on a long-term basis. So we're here to help you. So if you have more questions about business credit scores, the counselors can certainly help guide you through what I've just covered with you today. We also offer training and additional resources, and just a snapshot view of some of the great things that we have. We license Growth Wheel. We provide access to Live Plan for business planning to our clients, access to financial benchmarking data as your business planning, IBIS Industry World Reports, and our marketing arm of SBDC.net. So, and I'll open it up to questions, Robert, and I'll just continue to show my information here. So if you're interested in SBDC counseling, I have the link on the screen.
Excellent. Paula, thank you. Great presentation. So we have two questions. The first one is from Dean. It says, please expand on setting up trade accounts.
So that's where you would actually, in that example of the ABC office supplies, right? So maybe you wanted to set up that trade account with ABC office supplies. You would approach that business and ask if they, will set those terms up, right? Oftentimes businesses working with businesses will offer those accounts.
Okay, excellent. And then we have another one that says, if we would like to purchase or lease a vehicle under the business name, do lenders use business credit scores or personal credit scores for the owners?
So I would say go ahead.
That's it.
Okay. So I would say in this case, it could vary by lender. So ask the question. I mean, I would encourage you ask the lender, hey, are you checking my personal credit score, my business credit score? Because, lenders may have different ways of how they're checking and approving their clients for capital.
Excellent. And then we had another question pop up. I see it in the chat. It says, do secured credit cards in the business name make sense?
Do secured credit cards in the business name make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That I'm not sure how to respond to that question. If you want to expand on that, I'm happy to kind of take it offline and see if I can get a answer for you.
Or a question I might add to that in the same line is, if I'm a new business starting out, I set up my bank account, would it be advisable to get a business credit card through that bank, even if it's got a limit of like $200?
I would say yes. And I think the important question to ask is it reporting to those credit bureaus that track business credit? So yes, absolutely. Start getting what credit you can and paying those bills on time to start that business credit. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have another question from Dave. Who says, if provide personal guarantee on a business loan, does this impact my business credit reporting only, or both business and personal credit?
So I'm not sure I don't know if that personal guarantee is going to impact that or not. Not sure of that answer.
So that's something you'd, I guess, ask your lender about when you're making that personal guarantee on that loan?
Absolutely.
Okay. Another one, and this will be our last question before we wrap up, but this from Philip. It says, is trading partner activity conducted via electronic data interchange automatically reported?
Say that question again, Robert, sorry.
So is trading partner activity conducted via electronic data interchange? Is that information automatically reported?
So that's where you've got to check with each of these different businesses or organizations to find out if they report. Because there is not a standard that says everyone must report. So you need to ask some questions so you understand who does and does not report.
Excellent. Paula, thank you very much. Those are great questions, folks. Thank you for asking them. We're going to wrap up just a few minutes early. So those of you who want to attend the rural webinar on grant writing, you can get signed up for that and attend that as well. It'll be on here in just a couple minutes. You will have to log out and get the correct login for that webinar, but we want to switch over to that one here shortly. But again, Paula, thank you very much for presenting today. We appreciate the partnership that we have with the Small Business Development Centers. We want to remind everyone about Thursday's session. Employees were compared with independent contractors by Spencer Fain. It's going to be a great session, so please join us for that. Until then, have a great day, have a great afternoon, and we will see you on Thursday morning. Thank you for joining us today.